forward. Bruce, welcome. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Sherry, for the very nice introduction, and welcome everybody to today's demonstration on the Business Insights Explorer. And I think one of the first things we kind of want to do is just have a brief discussion on what this tool is and where it is within your Sage 100 menu listing. And I'm going to be using what's called the expanded tree view, where you see the folders here today. So if you don't have that, you can certainly navigate through your traditional modules method. But you'll see that there is a Business Insights folder here. It has three things in it. There's the dashboard. You may have seen the dashboard before. This is just kind of like straight up charts and graphs. That's not what we're covering today, but that's also there. That's been there for a long time. There's also a Business Insights Reporter folder. This is a way to write crystal reports, and we're not covering that. Today's session is going to be on a newer piece that hasn't been around as long as either of the other two, and that's the Business Insights Explorer here. So there are, first of all, we should probably talk about, how you can access these views. And these are views that allow you to kind of see data, drill around data, work with the data, and do a bunch of things, as you'll see as we go through today. So within the Business Insights folder itself, you'll see that there is basically a bunch of different views in here. And this is all the views that are currently available in the entire system. You will also see, if you look under a particular module, for example, you'll see a new Explorer menu underneath each module, and that will contain the views, the Business Insights Explorer views, relative to that specific module. So I tend to like to use the one under the Business Insights folder because, this one shows me everything. So that's two ways you can access it. And let's see. With that in mind, we're going to go ahead and we're going to just open up a view here and start talking about the tool. I've added a shortcut to mine for today's presentation, so I'm going to go ahead and open the Sales Order view. This would be under the Sales Order Explorer menu if you were going to go through the module, for example. Okay, and then see if I can drag this out of the way for us here. Okay, so this is kind of like the starting point for the Business Insights Explorer. And so we're going to talk about some of the different toolbars here. This little guy here that I'm circling, this is the View toolbar. So there's some different tools there about opening stuff and navigating back and forth. There's a Data toolbar. This is used for sorting type features and filtering. There is an Explorer toolbar. That's this one over here. This tells us the current setting we're in. These are settings that are similar to some of the Crystal Report features where you can have a standard setting, you can make changes, and then you can save that setting as a permanent setting, private or read-only. The main area of this tool here, right here, this is called the Data View Grid, and it's sometimes I'll refer to it as the upper grid, the main grid, but it's the Data View Grid. Down here, yes, let's see here. We'll go with that for now. Something about a Windows color screen change. I think that had to do with our webinar connection here. So down here is the preview pane, and then finally there's a status bar at the very bottom. It tells us what view we're in, who we're logged in as some other different information down there. All right, so the way this kind of tool works is when you select a record on the top, it's changing the view down below. It's changing, so in other words, if I change the order to 105, in this case I'm looking at line items down there, it's changing those line items. So now we're going to talk about this pane over here a little bit. This is called the navigation pane, and this is used to get into a couple different things. If I hit the preview option, we noted that we were already seeing line items in the preview pane down below, and that's because we have selected for line items here. If we were looking at, say, repeating orders, I might click on that one, and then this one happens to have a repeating order, so then I'm seeing repeating order information down here. So the preview pane kind of changes the information you're seeing in the screen below, or the pane down below. It doesn't change the information you're seeing above. I'm going to change it back to line items for a minute. That's basically what that one does. You'll also see that in this navigation pane here, there's an Explore option. So these are used to select, various other settings for different information. So if we picked, say, repeating orders, for example, we'd open up a different view. So that changed our whole view. We were in the sales order view. Now we're in the repeating orders view. If I were to use that navigation toolbar, I could simply navigate back and be right where I was. So Explore opens other views more or less, and you can see there's a list that's relative to where you started. Last but not least, there's a tasks function in the navigation pane. This will open up or give you access to certain, whoops, I'm just trying to widen it up here, give you access to certain specific tasks in Mass 90. So for example, if I was on this particular record here for custom craft products, and I were to select customer maintenance, that would open up customer maintenance for us. And there it is. We'll kind of see how that might come into play here throughout today's demonstration. You can also hide this task pane as well as any of these toolbars here and move them around. Some people like to just undock it like that and let it free float. You can also pin it to the side and do that sort of thing, just like that. I think what I'm going to do for now is just get rid of it and give us a little bit more room to work with in today's demonstration. Okay, so now we're going to talk about using the data view grid. So that's this upper grid up here that we're talking about. Okay, so probably one thing is that you can move these two up and down depending on what makes sense for a given situation. So if I have more records, I might need this to be taller. I could have it be lower if I wanted to see more information above. I'm going to leave it about like that for now. Now, all these columns here, they're very Excel-like. And if we wanted to, we can just basically kind of sort a column just by double-clicking any particular column. So if I click on, for example, the customer, I'm now sorting these records based on that field. And it's really hard to see here, but there is a really hard to see triangle that's pointing up. So it's starting from the top of the alphabet and going down. If I click it one more time, I'm now sorting that field the other way. So you can sort the data by simply double-clicking on any column in the primary grid. You can also select based on this. So here, if I click this drop-down box, if you do custom, you can build a filter here that will only show you certain records that you're building in your filter. We'll do some filtering a little later. Okay. Now we're going to show the filter builder. So there's a filtering function built in here, and this is this little button down here called the filter builder. And this can do a little bit more advanced filtering. We're going to build a filter in here. We're just going to say, and it's demo data here, so it's all over the board, but it's old. It's back in 2010. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put in a filter in here for order date, and I'm going to say we want two filters. I'm going to say we want the division to be equal to only the O2s. You'll note that we have customers in here from both divisions. And we'd like the order date to be, I'm going to say 5/15 of 2010. So give me a second, I'll put that in there. And we'll click our apply button and say OK. Now we've filtered the view, and it gave us exactly what we asked it for. Division O2 customers, only orders dated 5/15 of 2010. And you can see down here that the little filter indicator is telling us that it is turned on, number one, by this checkbox. And it's also telling us what it is that it's filtered for. So if I want to turn that off, I can just uncheck that real quick. If I want to get it back, I can just double check it. So the system is capable of remembering the filters that you have, whether they're currently active or not. Simply turning off the checkbox handles that. Okay, another thing you can do here that's really easy to do is you can change the order of the columns. So let's see here. Let's see what's a good column to move. The customer PO number. Let's say, for example, we, for whatever reason, decided we really wanted that next to the customer's name. I just grab it with my mouse. I left mouse click, and I just drag this wherever I want it. I let go when I have it where I want it. Gives me a little green indicator there, telling me I'm about to drop it usually. And there it is. If I want to move it to the right, I just move it. It's that simple. Whoops, I didn't mean to group it by that. We'll cover grouping in a second. Now, removing fields is also very easy. Let's see the deposit field over here on the right side of the screen. You know, maybe we're not using the deposit feature, so this particular column doesn't really add a lot of value by being in our view. I'm going to just drag that off the screen if I don't want it. Any direction you prefer. I'm going to drag it off the top. It's gone. We can also add those back. We'll see about adding fields here shortly. Well, actually, let's do it right now. Let's say, for example, that we wanted to add the bill to state here, and we don't currently see the bill to state. Well, what we can do is we can go over these columns here, and you can certainly use the toolbars up above to do this. I prefer the mouse commands, but I'm going to right-click and go to the column settings, and you can see there's some other options here. But I'm going to go to the column settings, and I'm going to look for the field bill to state. Now, what you'll see here is a list of fields, and this isn't necessarily all the fields you have access to, but this is the first place you want to look for something that you don't have that you want. So I'm going to look in here for bill to state, and I don't see it there. So if you don't see it there, it's entirely possible it's attached in one of these other tables. So I'm going to click this Add button over here. And what you'll see is an Add Column box like this. And it's going to show you basically different databases that are more or less connected to this view. And this gives us the ability to pick fields from any of these databases. And in this case, since it's a bill to, I'm probably going to want to get that out of this particular table because this is where we put the information in. And we'll see that the bill to state is right here. We're just going to highlight it and click OK. And there it is. It's now checked, which means it's in my view. Notice here's the deposit field that we dragged off. It's missing the checkbox because we dragged it off our view. So if I wanted to add it back, I could simply just check it, just like the bill to state now shows checked. So I'm going to say OK. And when you add a field to a screen like that, it always drops it on the right-hand side. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just move the bill to state next to our tax schedule. And that would be potentially a good way for verifying some sales tax information. I could see a potential error there, potentially. That's just why I did it. So now we're going to talk about grouping. For those of you who have ever done any crystal reporting, you know that there can be a lot of complexities with grouping data. That's one of the things I like about this tool. It's really, really simple by comparison to, say, crystal reports. Now, it doesn't mean it will replace every crystal report you have, but I can tell you from experience that this can replace a lot of crystal reports. And it's a little more dynamic, and it's a whole lot easier than crystal reports, that's for sure. So this area up here, it's kind of hard to see probably on your screen because it's hard to see on mine. But this little gray area above the primary grid is called the grouping pane. And this is where you can drag fields into to group certain data. So let's say we wanted to group this information by the bill to state, for example. So for now, I'm going to drag the secondary grid down here, make a little more room here, and I'm going to drag this bill to state field up to this area here. And that just grouped this by state. So now we're seeing all the California, in this case sales orders, and all the Wisconsin orders are now in their own groups. There's also these little shrink buttons here, the expand and contract. So if I wanted to shrink this up and get a more condensed view, I can see that. I can see all my California items are right in here, and I can expand this. This is very similar to Excel. And if you want to group it again, let's say we wanted to group it by the state. Now let's say, well, I'd like to group that by sales rep as well, because I see that there's multiple reps in each state except for Oregon. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to find that representative, the salesperson field here. Here it is, and I'm just going to drag it up here. So we are grouping primarily by state and then by salesperson, and that's the sort of relationship where that's kind of tucked underneath there, showing that. And sure enough, here's my California group. It's got all of Ginny Hernandez's orders first, then it's got Harvey's next, and then on to the next state and sales rep, and so on. Another nice thing you can do, now that we have it grouped, is we can see how the summary fields work. So let's say, hypothetically, I'd like to have some subtotals down here to tell me exactly what the order totals were for Ginny, say, versus Harvey, versus any other rep. Couple buttons up here. There's a summary footer and a group summary footer. So I want to add a summary to my groups, so I'm going to click that one. And what that does is that opens up some boxes, and you don't get to control which columns it opens them up for. It's kind of a programmatical thing. But once I have them highlighted, then I get to tell it what I want in here. So I can right-click my mouse over the field that's available, and I can choose from these, these items here. Now, since this is a dollar field, it probably makes sense to do a sum. So I'm just going to throw some summary information in here on some of these dollar fields so we can kind of see how that might work. Okay, so now we have some subtotals in here, and it would be nice if, similar to mini crystal reports, if we had a grand total telling us what is the grand totals for the whole company here. So if I click this button right here, I get those same type of boxes all the way down at the bottom, and I can do the same thing to those, only this is for everything. Okay, there it is. So I'm going to go ahead and see what else we might want to do here. Okay, that's nice. Another thing you can do is you can do your own formulas in here. So I always like to start the discussion on formulas. We'll see and or do some more complicated ones in a little bit. But I always like to start with the simplest formula I've ever seen. And I'm just going to right-click, go to the column settings, and I'm in that same screen now where I picked my available fields. One of the other options that we've got in here is to do a calculated field. There's a calculated button. If you click the calculated button, this is the place where you put in the formula. I'm going to call this count, if I can spell. And I'm going to make the expression a 1. Pretty simple formula. And let's see here. I'm going to also tell it that I want this to be a numeric type of field, because I'm going to do math with it in a second. Okay, so there it is. Oh, one more thing here, column settings. We may not, I noticed that I added decimals. In this case, what I'm trying to do is I want to have it be able to tell me how many orders, for example, a particular rep in a particular state might have. Let's say that's useful information to me. So if I want to get rid of these decimals, and we'll do some more of this formatting stuff in a little bit, but for now what I want to do is I want to get rid of my decimals. So I'm going to use the column level formatter. I told it it was numeric, so it opened up the numeric field for me, and then I can come in here and I can do some things for formatting. Specifically what I want to do is get rid of my, my decimals. And this tells me if it's a positive number, don't give me a decimal. I'm just going to be consistent and do that for any time it would display a number, negative or positive. Then I'm going to click OK. Now my decimals are gone. Because this is a numeric field, and because I took care to do that when I created it, I have the option of doing a summary on that as well. So now I know that Ginny has 6 orders in California, whereas Harvey has 7 for a total of 13. I'm also going to add that to my summary footer, and now I can see that I have 24 orders for the entire company. So that's a simple formula. Now, another thing you can do is this all exports really easily to various Microsoft applications. Since we're probably a mostly accounting group here, I'm going to show the export options. and I'm going to choose to dump this to Excel, and we'll see how well that works. So there it is. It dumped it into Excel, and if I wanted to widen some of these up so we could see it, you'll see it drops it fairly neatly into Excel with a grid. It doesn't have things grouped the way we did, but it's taking the raw data and dumping it to Excel, and it does that very nicely. Because it's coming from a grid, it comes into Excel very neatly that way. If anybody's ever tried exporting crystal reports before, you'll know that that isn't always the case. So that's a nice thing that it does there. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Now there is an option to only export selected cells. So if I were to pick and choose some of these things just randomly, and I would go to my export options, I could choose to select only the records that were selected to be exported. So you don't have to export everything. Okay. Now let's say that you like that, but what if you see information down below that is really what you want to be exported to Excel? So I'm going to highlight this particular order because it's got more line items than some of the other ones. So let's say, well, this is great. I'd really like to have that in there. There is a drill into preview feature, and there's also a button for that up above. But if I drill into preview, I'm not going to save my setting. Then it brings whatever was down below in that preview pane up to the top. And then this is now available for export to Excel as well, just like it was before. I'm going to go ahead and hit back. So that's how you would export the data down below if, for example, that's what you're interested in. Now we can also do some graphing in here, which is kind of nice. In theory, crystal reports can do graphing, although it's not very easy. I'm going to come over here to the Chart tab and show you just how easy this is. Let's say we wanted to do a, I don't know, an order total by rep. That makes sense. I'm going to give it a name here. You can tell it what kind of a chart you want, line, area, pie chart, etc. I'm going to leave it as a bar chart. And you can tell it how many data points you want. I'm just going to leave it as 8. I like the 3D look, so if I want 3D look, you'll see what that looks like here in a minute. And we're going to say order total by salesperson. And if I wanted to sort it, I can sort it. We could also do other fields. So if we wanted to do the, let's see, what else do we have here? I don't know. This might not make sense, but we'll do the freight as well. So you can stack and have more than one graph relative to the view. In this case, we're charting 2 data elements, freight as well as order total. If I went and added my count back, we could have charted the count against the order total and compare counts versus totals. Now, this is really easy to do other things with. For example, you can email the grid information or the charts. You can export them, so on. We've seen some of the exports already. What I'm going to do is do File, Send Page by Email here. And for those of you who use Paperless Office, this doesn't require any configuration or maintenance like Paperless Office does. Let it think here for a second. It might need my email open. That might help. Okay, so there it did. It needed my email. And what that did is it just opened up, it attached it right to my email. I go ahead and put an address in here and send this off. The way this will look when somebody gets it, of course, is they'll open it up and they'll have a JPEG showing, in this case, the chart. So pretty simple functionality on the emailing there. Okay, one other thing I want to show you in here is a mail merge. So let's see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just close this view. We're going to open up a different view, and I could save these settings as well. So whereas this is a standard, if I wanted to, I could save this as my order dashboard or whatever you want to call it. I'll show you. We'll be working with a saved view a little bit later. So now I'm going to open up the customer view here, slightly different view. And this is pulling, out of tables that are really more customer focused versus order focused, although they both have some overlaps on that. For this example, this is just a better view. So what we're going to do here is we're going to try to build a mail merge that will generate a customer letter, a customer welcome letter. So we're just going to highlight a few rows here in no particular order. Just select a few records versus selecting everything. And you can also use the, like the shift or the control plus shift to highlight, groups of fields. I just picked a few at random. And since I only want these selected records and not a letter for every customer, existing customers, I'm going to go to File, Export Options, and I'm going to tell it that I want the selected records only. And I have to come back in a second time because it closes it when I do that. And that's actually an enhancement request I've put in to have that just stay open for us when we do that so that we can do the next thing. But you can see now that the selected records only is there. And we're going to do a Microsoft Office merge. So here's our Microsoft Office merge option. We're going to choose a word merge. And let's see here. We're going to open up my welcome. And what this is doing right now is it's taking the records I've selected and it's dumping these into a comma delimited file. And for those of you who've ever worked with BI, it's exactly the same thing. It's basically dumped those into an Excel file, if you will, a delimited file of some type, and then it's going to allow us to perform merges with the data that's in that file. So this is our blank customer welcome letter. The first thing I want to do is add my company logo. Okay, got a logo, so it looks official. And then we're going to go ahead and type our letter. So over here on the Mailings tab, we have the Insert Merge Fields box. And let's see here. It looks like that would be the name. And we'll make this a nice short letter. You'll get the idea. And let's see here. Division and customer number. There's credit limit. And we'll add our salesperson as our last field here. Okay, so now we've got the template built. Now we're going to just say finish and merge, And I'm going to ask it to edit the individual documents so that we can actually see that. And now it's going on through. And as you can see, the records we've selected here are the ones from our screen that we picked. And there's the next one, and so on. So then we'd be able to edit these individual, ones if we wanted to change it up a little. So that's how you do a word merge, basically. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to show a little bit more of an advanced one that's kind of already partially built, and just show you, where you could potentially go with something like this. It's kind of a real-life example. I'm not going to bother saving anything here. And I have this actually pre-built in another install, so I'm going to go ahead and close out of this one and open the other one. And let's see. So this is a scenario we're going to do that deals with collections and kind of uses some of the tools together that we've already looked at. So one of the things I wanted to show you here is, let's take a look at customer maintenance. So this is going to be a collections-related example. And in this scenario, what we've done is we've added a tab called Collections to Customer Maintenance. If we go over here and look at this tab, we've added a number of different fields just to kind of sample Custom Office and how it can work with this tool. So we've added a number of fields here. We've got a date field. We've got drop-down fields with a list of valid callers that might be calling on behalf of the company. We've got a status box here. We've got a place for notes. And that's some of the data we're going to be working with in our view, and that's where it's going to be coming from when you see it. Actually, let's go in and let's update one of these. I don't know if this one has any past due balances or not, but we'll just throw some data in here. Let's see. Let's pick one that doesn't have anything yet. All right, here's one. We're going to say dog ate my invoices. That's our note for today. We're going to go ahead and accept that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to open up our view. And we're going to take a look at this thing. So here's the standard view. This one has been saved as the collections view. So here's an example of a saved view. Now this view has a lot of different things kind of going on with it. And what we're going to do is kind of talk about what's been done here and what we're going to potentially do to finish it. So one of the things that we can do is we're going to add a past due field. So you see we've got some fields in here that talk about the total balance, the current balance, as well as some aging. And this is demo data, so it may be a little off. But we're going to go ahead and add a total, or we're going to do a past due amount field. We're going to go to column settings here. We're going to do a calculated field, and we're just going to call it past due. And we're going to go ahead and find our fields. We know that the total past due amount is coming from these aging categories, so it's a simple formula. We're just going to add these together. There it is. Okay. Now, I can do some color coding in here as well. So one of the things we're going to do is see how that would work. So this is a currency field, and I'm going to select to use a column level formatter. And what this does is it opens up this, and this is the same place where we remove the decimals in a prior example. In this example, we're going to add a color to it. So we're going to say if it's a positive number here, we're going to right-click and we're going to insert a color tag to that. And we're going to tell it if it's a positive number, meaning there's an amount past due, we want to see that in red. I'm going to click OK, and sure enough, there's my past due column showing up over here. If I want to move that, let's say, over here in between my aging categories and my current balance, I can now have it laid out in a kind of a logical format there. Okay, the credit variance. Let's just take a look at that one real quick. That's the formula. Pretty straightforward. Took the credit limit minus more or less everything. And you'll notice that this one, it's got a green color in there if it's positive, and it's got a red color in here if it's negative. That is why it's displaying green on some of these, because they're still within their credit. So this, in this case, would highlight customers who might be over credit. And we can kind of see that this customer has a total balance of $665, but they don't have any credit, therefore their entire amount is over their credit limit. Okay, so over here on the right side of this, you'll notice some of our collection notes. There's the one I added today, dog ate my invoices. How would we add other user-defined fields? Let's go take a look at that. So it's very similar to how we add other fields. We get the list here. If we don't see what we want, we can use the add, but we're going to add the status field that we're missing. So it says UDF status. It's simple as checking a box, just like any other field. It's that easy. And then up here, if I want to change the way it displays the caption, maybe I don't want the word UDF in there, and maybe I'd like it to spell it, kind of proper like the rest of the headings are, I can just change it like that to status. And I'm just going to say OK. And now I've had my status added in here. That simple. So very powerful tool in terms of adding UDFs. Now let's talk about how you might work with this all together. So I'm going to say we want to see our navigation pane. So hypothetical scenario. Here's a customer with a big outstanding balance. If I sort that, I can see that they've got by far the most past due. So what I might want to do is use this to call this customer up. So I might have their phone number here right from the screen. I might dial up for pre-sailing ships. I might have the contact there. I don't happen to have them in this particular view, but I can see that we've been calling on it and we have a status situation over here. So I could call them and talk to them about their account. If that person answers the phone and they decide to talk to me, I may want to update these notes. So while I'm right here highlighted up from pre-sailing ships, I could go ahead and click Customer Maintenance right from the screen, come right over here to my Collections tab, update whatever the information I need is. And let's say, for example, maybe we're a system that has the integrated credit card processing with Sage Payment Solutions, and I talk them into making a payment over the phone. I could also do, let's see here, here's cash receipts entry. So I could update my note, come back to the screen. I could even refresh that data right on the screen right there, real time. And then I can come over here to cash receipts, and I could come in here and enter a batch, process this credit card right over the phone, and move on to my next collections call. So pretty dynamic way to use the tool between all the custom office, getting access to the tasks. If you had some integrated credit card processing, that would be great. And let's see here. Last but not least, we're just going to do a past due by sales rep chart. So past due was a calculated field, and I just wanted to show you that we can also chart, and all this basically works just like native fields. There's our order count. So really simple tool that's fairly easy to use, and if I wanted to update my view here and save it, I would just click the Save button at this point. I can print anything out or anything else. And that's kind of the quick and dirty on the Business Insights Explorer. Does anybody have any questions on that?
I've unmuted all of the lines. I did mute them during the presentation because you were experiencing an echo, Bruce.
Oh, okay.
Jackie is the only one left on the call because Hillary had a meeting she had to attend.
All right.
So Jackie is saying she does not have any questions. So Jackie, if anything comes up in the meantime or you'd like more information, please feel free to contact me. I will be sending out some follow-up emails on this. So again, any questions you have, please feel free to reach out to me. Bruce, I want to thank you for doing such a wonderful job today, and we will see you at the next webinar. Please keep a lookout for our emails on our Lunch and Learns, and we are updating our calendar on our website at this time. Thank you, everyone, and have a very wonderful day.
Thanks, Sherry. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.